Vigorous. That's the word on the tag. Fast-growing, spreads freely. Excellent ground cover. Nobody at the till tells you those are all the same word, as you will be fighting this for 10 years. 14 perennials I regret planting. None of it is your fault. Everyone came off a shelf with a tag that was technically true and told you nothing. 4 are milder than the internet says, and I'll tell you which. One is on a state's restricted list and perfectly legal 1 state over. One is the thing you've been treating with lawn weed killer for years, and that weed killer does not touch it. And number 1 has creeping roots and carrot roots a foot down, so every time you dig it, you get more of it. This is my second list like this. You don't need the first to use this one. Nothing repeats. Number 14, Crocosmia. Scarlet trumpets on an arching stem, usually sold as Lucifer. The mildest thing on the list, and it's first for a reason. And it isn't a lily, whatever the catalog says. It's in the iris family, a cousin of the gladiolus, and it behaves like one. 3 to 5 inches deep and 6 to 8 inches apart is how the extension folks tell you to set them, and a new corm needs about 2 years before it's making its own. The regret is the corms. That corm makes little ones round its base. Those make their own. And in under 10 years, a polite clump has doubled the ground it sits on. The California Invasive Plant Council watched that happen. And they aren't a state agency. They're a nonprofit that keeps score. Their own rating for it is limited, and it doesn't die when you cut it. Don't touch this one in September. The extension folks say lift it and split it in spring before growth starts. And Washington State says plainly, do not take the leaves off after it has bloomed. Those leaves are feeding next year's corm. Mark it for spring, before anything pokes through, and leave it be. One more, because most lists get it wrong. Crocosmia is not running wild across America. The only places it has got loose are coastal California and Hawaii. Inland, it's a nuisance in a border, and nothing worse, and nobody has banned it anywhere. Want that red without corn math every spring. Cardinal flower. Before number 13, if what you're really after is a yard that looks good without eating every weekend, a friend of mine and I put the whole system into one guide. It walks through the plants we trust, where we put them, what we don't waste money on, and how to set a garden up, so it gets easier as you get older instead of harder. It's called the Low Maintenance Garden Blueprint. It's at henrysgardensecrets.com, and the link is right below. I won't mention it again. Right. Number 13. Number 13. Spiderwort. 3 blue petals, grassy leaves, open in the morning, gone by afternoon. Careful here, because it is native to the eastern and central United States and isn't on a single state's list. Call Spiderwort invasive, and the Native Plant Society in your county will put you right. One thing to get straight before the mail comes in. There is a spiderwort that genuinely is an invader, and it is not this one. Tradescantia fluminensis, the small-leaved trailing sort people grow indoors, is a Category 1 invader in Florida. Different plant, same first name. The one in your border is Tradescantia virginiana, and it's ours. It earns a place anyway, and Purdue is why. They score garden plants for spreading, and Spiderwort gets 5 out of 5. On how it spreads, the extensions don't agree, and I'd rather say so than pick the version that sounds better. Penn State says underground runners and seed. Iowa State says clump expansion and self-seeding. What they agree on is the seed. And the thing nobody warns you about isn't the spreading. It's what it looks like in July. It flops. Sideways, straggly, unkempt, right at the front of the bed where you put it because it was pretty in May. Penn State's fix is the best advice here, and it isn't removal. Cut the whole thing to 2 or 3 inches in early July. Stops the flopping, takes the seed heads off before they shed, and gives you a second flush in September. Want a version that behaves? Sweet Kate or Charlotte's Web. Number 12. Obedient Plant. Whoever named it had a sense of humor. The name comes from the flowers because you can push one sideways and it stays. Plant itself does nothing of the kind. Another native, Quebec down to Florida and Texas, on no list anywhere. Hardy from Zone 2 to Zone 9, and it flowers June into September, which is a long shift from a plant that asks for nothing. Missouri Botanical is blunt. Aggressive spreaders by creeping underground stems and self-seeding. Where it grows wild tells you where it will misbehave for you. Riverbanks, damp thickets. The low end of a prairie. Anywhere you've been generous with the hose. The aggression is conditional. NC State says it can be aggressive in rich, moist soil and weedy in damp ground. Dry, lean bed on sand, it behaves for years. So if you're watching with a well-mannered clump in a hot corner, don't dig it out on my say-so. And when you want less of it, this is the easiest job on the list. Shallow roots. You pull it up with your hand. No spade, no chemical, no second season. The swap here is almost too good to be true. There is a compact cultivar of this very plant that doesn't run, and somebody had the wit to call it Miss Manners. Number 11. Japanese anemone. Tall white or pink saucers on wiry stems, carrying a shade bed through September when everything else has quit. This is where I'll be most careful, because it's where I'm most likely to deserve a correction. It's on no invasive list in this country, and Wisconsin's extension goes past silence. They say outright these anemones aren't considered invasive in the upper Midwest. So why is it here? Because Missouri Botanical says, what happens once it settles in? It naturalizes in the garden by spreading rhizomes and forms large colonies. Wisconsin puts it gentler. It can spread and overrun other perennials. And the detail that decides whether this is your problem. The bad actor isn't the one most people grow. The aggressive one is Anemone tomentosa, sold as robustissima. The ordinary hybrids are described as manageable. Read the tag. That one also has a ceiling. Anemone tomentosa is a zone 4 to 7 plant and struggles south of 7. So if you garden in Georgia or East Texas, the aggressive one was never really yours to worry about. It spreads by shallow black wiry rhizomes, and this surprised me. The hybrids rarely set seed. So, it isn't seeding into the woods. It's walking sideways under your hostas, which is why it's easy. Shallow fibrous roots, and the new plants out at the edge of the colony come up with a hand fork or with your fingers. Wear gloves though. The sap raises a rash on some people, and the other warning on it is about the mouth. Chew any part of this, and it burns badly. Nobody eats it twice. Number 10. Pink Evening Primrose. 2 plants share one name, and it's cost people a lot of digging. The one sold as a charming cottage plant, Pink Lady's Mexican Evening Primrose, Siskiyou, is Oenothera speciosa. That's the one that runs by runners just under the surface and by seed at once, and NC State says it can take over a bed. The other, Oenothera biennis, the tall yellow biennial, doesn't run at all. Deep taproot, seed only. Why does that matter? The terrifying numbers you've read belong to the wrong plant. 100 capsules, 100 seeds each, seed viable for over 80 years. That's Ohio State on the yellow biennial weed, not the pink one in your border. And before anybody writes in, this is an American plant, native to Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and Nebraska. not a foreign invader. A native misbehaves once you plant it outside the country it came from. It has settled itself into 27 states since. What's it is bad enough. Purdue scores it 5 out of 5, and Iowa State names what defeats people. Running and seeding at once means cutting the seed heads off doesn't slow it down. And now, the best fact in this video. The opposite of every instinct you have. Poor soil keeps it honest. NC State says poor, rocky, infertile ground encourages it to grow as a well-behaved clump, and without summer water, it goes dormant. Feed it and water it, and you've made your own problem. Swap, native to more of the country, purple poppy mallow. It grows off a taproot, so it stays put. Or stay in the same family and take Oenothera macrocarpa, the big yellow one. Purdue scores that 3 out of 5 instead of 5. Same evening flower, half the trouble. Do me one favor before I keep going. Drop a comment with the number growing at your place and your state next to it. I read every one. Half this list is a serious problem in one part of the country and barely anything in another. And the map that builds in the comments is how I pick what to cover next. The first list happened because of it. Number 9. Chinese lantern. Orange papery cases in half the dried arrangements in America. Purdue puts it at 4.5 out of 5 for spreading. Washington State says it spreads by rhizomes, is somewhat invasive, and it's wise to box the roots in with a buried barrier. It gets out of gardens too, and New York has the paperwork on it. The state's Flora Atlas has it down as not native, naturalized. Pressed specimens from 10 counties, most of them collected between 1932 and 1950, so it has been walking off American porches for the best part of a century. Nobody regulates it anywhere though. Now I'll be straight with you. I went looking for a number on this plant, how far it runs, how deep the rhizomes go, and there isn't one. Not in extension, not in the Forest Service database, not in the journals. Anybody quoting one made it up. What we do have is the part that isn't on the label. NC State rates the poison severity high. The poison in it is solanine, nightshade family, same as potato and tomato leaves. Flowers, leaves, stems, and unripe fruit are all toxic, and the symptoms run from stomach pain and wide pupils to the heart slowing and the breathing going shallow. Their wording is that it may be fatal. The ripe fruit inside the lantern is the exception. And that's all. The toxic part is the pretty part, the part that goes on a table where grandchildren are. For dried pods without any of that, blue false indigo, native, and it stays put. Number 8. Ajuga, bugleweed. The bronze mat with little blue spires in May. I sold pallets of this as lawn edging, which is the exact thing Clemson tells you not to do. Plant it as an edging and small islands of green appear out in your lawn. They appear. I have been to houses. It runs on stolons in every direction from a central crown and roots wherever a stem touches soil. Clemson's figure. Plants set out in spring, close to ground in one season. Not every kind does it. Geneva, and the upright form sits still. The running sorts are what got sold as edging. But the bigger story isn't the spreading. After a few good years, it dies in patches, and people think they did something wrong. That's crown rot. Texas A&M names the worst of them, southern blight. Clemson says several fungi do it, and NC State adds another. Not one bug, a whole crowd, all liking the same conditions. Plants yellow and go in circular patches in warm, humid weather. The stem bases rot black, and a white mold appears with reddish-tan bodies that sit in the soil through winter, waiting. Worse, where drainage is poor. Arkansas won't recommend it as a large-scale ground cover in the South. Big plantings melt away after a few years. Texas A&M adds one more thing you can't see coming. Ajuga is very prone to root knot nematodes, which live in the soil and give you no warning at all. Between those and the rot, a big sheet of this has two separate ways to fail. So you get both. It escapes in lawn, and the part that stayed home rots. If you want it anyway, and it is a pretty thing in May, keep the patch small, put it where water drains and air moves, and split it every couple of years instead of letting it close into one solid mat. Rot travels through a mat. No state regulates it, and on whether it gets into woodland, Arkansas says no, and Maryland says in Maryland it does. Unsettled. Maryland's replacements: wild ginger for shade, wild strawberry for sun. Before the top 7, I want to take something off this list because it's on nearly every list like it, and I don't think it belongs. Sweet woodruff. Yes, it spreads. Wisconsin's in ideal conditions, it goes to the point of being aggressive. But read their next sentence, which nobody quotes. In cooler climates and clay soils, it behaves better. Then there's South Dakota State, who don't call it aggressive at all. They recommend planting it, and their warning is the reverse of what you'd expect. Careful putting it next to lily of the valley or bishop's weed, because those will take it over. A land grant extension service telling you to plant every list like mine puts in the dock is the one needing protection, and it's on no state's list, not one. So how did it end up on all those lists? Here's the trap, and it's one word wide. Wisconsin does restrict Agalium, but the one they restrict is Galium molligo, false baby's breath, a roadside weed nobody planted on purpose. Sweet woodruff is Galium odoratum. Somebody read the wrong line years ago, and it has been copied ever since. The one real complaint extension has about it isn't speed at all. It's that the stems snap when you pull and leave the roots sitting in the ground. Loosen the soil first and lift. Don't tug. Number 7. Gooseneck loosestrife, a white spike that arches over and nods, like the neck it's named for. Arkansas has the best line. Its detractors uniformly condemn its invasive root system. They compare it to bamboo and use the word thuggish. Here's something I couldn't give you for most of this list. A measured number. Arkansas followed one plant in dry, partly shaded ground, and in 15 years it made a patch 6 feet across, about 2.5 inches further out in every direction, every year. And here the condition: dry shade. In damp, rich ground, it's faster. 6 feet in 15 years is the best case, not the average. It's regulated nowhere, and the extension approach isn't removal, it's containment. Sink it in a buried container, or put it where a path stops it. Keep it out of small gardens. Now here's the thing, and it's a name problem. Gooseneck loosestrife is not purple loosestrife, different families entirely. Purple loosestrife is magenta, stands stiff, lives in wet ditches, makes up to 2.7 million seeds off one plant, and in Minnesota, it's a misdemeanor to even possess it. Gooseneck is white, it nods over, and it's in your border. Anybody who says they're the same has read the word loosestrife and stopped. The swap, and I'll be honest about this one. Extension names 2 other loosestrifes as substitutes, but one of them, fringed loosestrife, runs on rhizomes itself, in a small bed that's a step sideways, not a step out. If what you want is white upright, go outside the family altogether, Culver's root. Zones 3 to 8, stands up on its own, and stays where you put it. Number 6, lily of the valley. My grandmother had a strip along the north side of the house, and the smell of it is still the smell of that house to me. It's also a plant I wouldn't put in a bed today. NC State. In ideal conditions, the dense rhizomes spread and choke out other plants. It isn't banned anywhere. Reported invasive in Wisconsin, Arkansas, which is reputation, not law. Now the part people ask me about, and I want the size of it right in both directions. It is genuinely a heart poison. NC State lists cardiac glycosides and saponins in every part: flowers, berries, leaves, roots, sap, seed. And the same source rates the poison severity low and says toxic only if large quantities are eaten. Both are true at once, and you won't hear the second half anywhere. A real heart poison in every part, and a small chance of anything serious from ordinary contact. If a child or a dog eats any, call poison control. And one thing worth knowing if it ever comes to that: the main poison in it is convalitoxin, and the standard hospital blood test, the one for digoxin, picks that up poorly. So don't wait for a number on a chart to settle it. Say what the plant was and say it out loud. Timing, and I'd rather tell you than sell you. September is not the month to spray this. The window is early spring on tender new leaves. What you can do now is sink a deep edge, so the barrier is in the ground before spring. And if you're going the smothering route, understand that it's next year's job. That cover wants to go down in early spring, early summer at the latest, and stay down the whole growing season. A month under a tarp does nothing at all. Native swaps, wild ginger, foam flower, Canada mayflower. Number 5. Sweet autumn clematis. In September, it throws a cloud of small white flowers over a fence, and the scent carries across a yard. UF's write-up isn't sentimental. It overgrows saplings and small trees, killing some, and it can smother fully grown ones. It goes up 30 feet on stems no thicker than your little finger, and it doesn't grab with tendrils. It winds its leaf stalks round whatever it touches. NC State's verdict is 5 words: not recommended for any garden. New York regulates it, legal to sell, but only with a sign saying it's invasive. That's the only real regulation in the country. Everywhere else it's advice. Florida's council lists it, and so do the invasive plant groups in Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Virginia, and half a dozen more. Advice, not law. You'll see people quote seed counts for this vine. There aren't any. Every source says prolific. None gives a figure. When a video hands you 100,000, it came from the air. The one real number anybody has is the timing. Ripe seed can come up any time from 1 month to 9 months after it drops. So a clean bed in October tells you nothing about June. If this video does one useful thing for you, let it be this. There's a native look-alike, and people are pulling it out by mistake. The invader is Clematis terniflora. The native is Clematis virginiana, Virgin's bower, and they share the same common name, the same white flowers, and the same bloom time. You can't tell them apart by the flower, and not by the month either. You tell them apart by the edge of the leaf. The invasive one has smooth leaf edges. The native has teeth. Clemson, UF, New York, and Nebraska all say it independently. Check mature leaves high up the vine. Young invasive plants can show a little toothing and mislead you. When it's the wrong one, cut the vines now, while the flowers are up and you can see where it all goes, and paint the cut stumps with triclopyr. Root pieces re-sprout, so plan on going back. Number 4. Ribbon grass. White and green striped, sometimes labeled gardener's garters. Purdue doesn't score it. They put it in the section called Do Not Plant. It's a mat of rhizomes right at the surface. The Forest Service found them, and over half the roots in the top 8 inches. That's why you can't get a fork under it and lift anything whole. And the thing that traps people, Mowing propagates it. Wisconsin's review puts around 15% of cut stem pieces rooting and starting new stands. So the tidy gardener who runs a string trimmer over it every summer has been planting it. 600 seeds a flower head. Fresh seed comes up best, close to 9 and 10 at 3 months, down to about 2 and 3 by the time it's a year old. But a slice of it is still alive 20 years down. Counts in the soil have run to well over 300 seeds in a square yard. Now the legal side, and it will surprise you. Massachusetts prohibits it, import and sale, since January 2006. And Wisconsin so you can't transport or transfer it without a permit. But read what Wisconsin restricted, because it's the opposite of what everybody assumes. The variety Picta, the pretty striped garden one. And they say in writing it does not include plain reed canary grass. In Wisconsin, the ornamental is the one they came after. The wild grass goes where it likes. Massachusetts banned the lot. 2 more states people get wrong. Washington lists it, but at Class C, which does not ban selling it. And Connecticut calls it invasive with nothing attached, so it's still on sale there. New Hampshire doesn't list it at all. If somebody tells you it's illegal across the north, they haven't read a single one of those lists. Timing is on our side for once. Wisconsin says spring, or late summer into fall. Black plastic for a full season works. Mowing alone does not. Native grasses for the same job. Prairie dropseed, little blue stem, switchgrass for height. If you're new here, subscribe. 1 a week. What earns its place in an American yard and what only looks like it will. Number 3, common tansy. Flat clusters of yellow buttons, ferny leaves, sold as a useful herb since the colonists brought it over. First a correction, because this herb is everywhere. Common tansy is not ragwort. Tansy ragwort is a different plant, and it's the one with the alkaloids that destroy the liver of cattle and horses. Oregon put its losses $5 million a year before they turned insects loose on it. Every video telling you garden tansy will ruin a horse's liver has confused 2 plants. You tell them apart in one look. Common tansy flowers are buttons, no petals round them. Tansy ragwort flowers are little daisies with rays, buttons or daisies. Now, what's true of the garden one? Montana State, toxic to livestock and humans if enough is eaten. It contains thujone, which can cause miscarriage, convulsions, and skin irritation, and is reported to cause abortion in cattle. And the qualifier from the same page, which I'm saying because leaving it out would be dishonest. Animals won't touch it, so poisoning is rare. Wear gloves anyway. There's also a federal rule that tells you exactly where the government lands on this plant. Tansy is permitted in food in one place only, alcoholic drinks. And even then, the finished drink has to have the thujone out of it. So, when somebody tells you it makes a lovely tea, that isn't a difference of opinion. Spreading is rhizomes and seed together, and on the seed count the source is split. I'll give you both. Minnesota says over 50,000 seeds a year off one plant. King County counts by ground instead, and gets over 1,000 live seeds in a square yard. Either way, more than you want. Roots break easily and re-sprout, and cut it, and it flowers again the same season. And don't run a mower over it after July. Once the seed heads are up there, the mower is how it travels. Minnesota's own wildlife people name mowing as a way it spreads, and it's banned. Minnesota lists it prohibited. No transporting, no propagating, no selling. Montana 2B, Colorado List B. Timing, honestly. August is the wrong month to kill it. The spray window is bud stage, late spring. Now you cut the flower heads and bag them before they shatter, and put the real job in the diary for June. Number 2. Yellow archangel. Silver marbled leaves, small yellow hooded flowers, sold in flats as shade ground cover. The stolons run over 3 feet a year and root at every node. It makes around 800 seeds, and ants carry them 200 feet and more. Somebody has actually measured the patch itself. In an English beechwood, the edge pushed outward somewhere between 20 inches and 5 feet in a year, depending on the year and the That's just the edge moving. The middle only gets thicker, and mowing spreads it. King County says it plainly. Mowing is not effective. Plants recover quickly from cutting and spread from the fragments. Now, the detail that stopped me. Oregon's Department of Agriculture says the wild populations there are generally associated with yard debris dumping. Not birds, not wind, a wheelbarrow, and somebody tidying up at the edge of a wood, which makes disposal the whole job. Never leave it in a natural area. Don't compost it at home. Yard waste pickup, the bin, or the transfer station. This one is genuinely banned. Washington has it on the quarantine list, and it's been illegal to buy, sell, or distribute there since July 2016. Oregon says any plant yellow archangel is illegal to sell in the state. And before somebody asks about Herman's Pride, the tidy clumping one, I went looking, and there isn't a single extension anywhere that rates the varieties separately. Oregon's notice covers everything under that name, whichever tag it came on. So I can't tell you it's the safe one, and neither can they. And it's a real forest invader with paperwork to prove it. Washington documents it inside Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, pushing out sword fern and trillium. In proportion, though, at listing they counted 26 patches. A small footprint, not a regional disaster. 2 pieces of good news. The roots are only about 8 inches deep, so a spade gets underneath. And spring and fall are the spray windows, so unlike most of this list, you're in the right month. Number 1. Creeping bellflower. The purple bells hang down one side of the stalk, and only one side. The Native American bellflower flowers all the way round. Underneath it has 2 things at once, and that's the problem. Creeping roots that run sideways, and fat carrot-shaped storage roots along them, a foot down. Break either, and every piece becomes a plant, which is why digging multiplies it. Up to 15,000 seeds off one plant on the wind. Wisconsin restricts it, the only state that does. And here is what I most want you to hear. The 2,4-D in your lawn weed killer does not work on this. Minnesota says so outright. Nor does quinclorac. Dig to 12 inches, sift, kill any regrowth within 10 days. Or spray in fall now with something systemic. 2 to 5 years. Start this weekend. 14. And I meant what I said at the front. 4 are milder than you've been told, and 1 I took off the list entirely. 4 more are the wrong job for August. The tansy, the lily of the valley, the Crocosmia, and the Spiderwort all want a different month, and I'd rather you knew than wasted a Saturday. The rest you can start on today. Tell me below which one you found, and your state with it. And if you haven't seen the first 9, it's on the channel.